Hello. Welcome. This is our big questions event. Today we're talking about what is true freedom. If this is your first time on one of these live streams, you're very welcome. This will all be recorded, so you can come back and watch it as much as you like. Yeah. Kate, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, my name's Kate. I am a first year linguistics student and I'm going to be one of your hosts today. Jonah?
I'm Jonah. I'm going to be your other host. I'm a third year history student. I've got less than a week until my degree is finished, which is quite scary now. So this is going to be the last one of these live streams that I'm involved with, but I'm quite excited. So yeah. We're joined by John T. John T. Alcock here, who's going to be giving us a bit of a talk later. Hello, John T. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself briefly, or however you want?
I'd love to. Yeah, I'm John T. I live in central London, just behind the Tate Modern, if people know London at all. I realise it's a long way away, but just near the edge of the Thames. So it's a cool place to live. I have one wife and 3 boys, teenage boys. The middle one, it's his birthday today. So we had a happy birthday breakfast this morning. Yeah, it's great. It's great to be able to join you guys and to look at this question together.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on his birthday as well. Oh, I suppose he's probably at school. But okay. I don't feel as guilty now for depriving you. Yeah. How have you been able to enjoy any of the freedom of this week of post lockdown easing?
Yeah, it's quite weird, isn't it? And I went for a coffee with a friend yesterday in a coffee shop, and it was like, it felt like the biggest treat ever in the world. I feel like all my kind of levels of treat have been readjusted. I'm much more easily pleased. And I think my kids basically are going to go and have sleepovers all weekend at various places because they're just desperate to go and see their friends. So yeah.
And to get out of the house.
Freedom.
Kate, have you been able to enjoy other people's houses or pub or anything?
Yeah, it's been great. I went into somebody's flat and I was like, wow, I've never seen the inside of your house before. It's only just been Zoom backgrounds, really.
Yeah.
It's been great. And then sitting inside a pub, I'm not freezing, sitting outside under a parasol, but yeah, it's been great. So
you don't have to fight for the one table with the heater.
Yeah. We've spent so much time just being frozen for the last month.
Yeah.
6 months. And then meeting people on Zoom who you've not met in person. It's so weird. I met someone the other day who I got to know quite well on Zoom. She is so short. I was like, I had no idea how short you were.
I met UK on Zoom, and you said, well, the opposite to me. You said you thought I was taller in person than I looked on Zoom. Yeah, very, very weird. What a weird year, I guess, without freedom, very fittingly. Great. Before we sort of get on, with the talk, I'm just going to quickly explain. So John is going to do a talk about our question, what is freedom? And after his talk, in about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, we're going to have a time of question and answers, a Q&A. And you can send in any questions you have for John T. About the talk. I mean, I guess about anything, but about the talk would be good. And that's going to be so. I'm going to explain now how you can do that. Yes, so you should be able to see on screen. So we're using Slido.com. So if you just Google Slido, it should be the top result there. There should also be all the information in the description of this video. And then we're using a code, and the code is 094905. 094905. That will be on the screen, as you can see, as you may be able to see now, well, or later. And it's also in the video description. So you just go enter that, and then you can type a question. And oh, there you go. It's being demonstrated for us. Yeah, what is true freedom? That is the title. And then you can just submit that. And what you can also do is there's a little like button. Yep, there you can see on the screen. And if you like a question someone else has asked and you want that to be answered, then you can click that button to say, I want to hear the answer to that, please. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, so if you get asking those questions either during the talk or after the talk, yeah, anything you want answered, and then John too will answer that when we've listened to his talk. So yeah, without further ado, we'll hand over to John T for your talk.
Brilliant. Guys, thanks so much for joining. Like we've said, I'm going to speak for probably 20 minutes or so, and I hope what I say kind of sparks some questions, sparks some interest, and then we'll have time to really discuss it and think about it some more. I guess freedom's been one of the questions that's been very much on our minds in the last year. Our freedoms have been taken away. We've not been able to go where we want to go. We've not been able to do what we want to do. And we found ourselves all too often freezing, trying to pretend we're having a nice time. But it raises the question, well, what is true freedom? I don't think it's particularly controversial to say that all of us want to be free, that all of us long to be free. But I think there is an issue around what freedom really means. And what I want to do in this talk is set out two visions, two versions of freedom. And I want to explore those with you. The first version of freedom that we're going to think about, I don't think will surprise you. It's the version I think that we live with, that we swim with, that seems to be obvious and self-evident to us. So we're going to look at that version of freedom. I'm then going to critique it. I'm going to show why that there may be some problems with it. And then I'm going to try and show you a different view of freedom and try and articulate and try and show you how a Christian worldview, an understanding of what the Bible has to say, may give us a more compelling and more satisfying answer to the question of freedom. So that's where we're going. But let's start with this question of what does it mean to be free? I think it's fairly self-evident and fairly widely accepted that freedom is about being able to do whatever I want to do. Freedom is something that I get to choose for myself. So freedom is my choice. It is my life. It's my choice. And therefore, I get to do what I want to do. And no one can say anything different. So look, I've got a £20 note here. And this £20 note, here it's just a little rectangle of kind of plasticky stuff. And it kind of challenges me with some questions. It kind of says to me, what are you going to do with me? How are you going to use me? And I've got freedom. It's my £20 note. Therefore, I can do what I want with it. I could tear it into tiny little strips and make a bed for a hamster, which would be comfortable and snuggly. Or I could fold it up and make a little paper airplane and have that wonderful sense of satisfaction as my £20 floats away on the breeze. Or I could buy myself a new jumper, or my wife a bunch of flowers, or a homeless man a bag of food. How do I decide? So I've got this freedom, I've got this £20 note, but that now then challenges me with the question, well, what are you going to do with it? Now, all of us possess something far more precious than a £20 note. You see, all of us have this thing called life. You, if you are watching this live stream right now, I'm assuming are alive. You have life, this thing that's difficult to define, but it's you. And you have this thing, and it challenges you with the question, well, what are you going to do with me? How are you going to use the life that you have? How are you going to use the gift that you've been given? You see, going back to the £20 note, I guess some of you would say, if I tear it up into little strips and make a hamster's bed, well, you've wasted it. What is a good use of a £20 note? What is a good use of a life? And how do you decide that? And I think this is where the issues of freedom really become important to us, where I am constantly being told, you decide. It's your life. Do whatever you want to do. Be whatever you want to be. Go wherever you want to go. And so I think many of us seek, therefore, to use our life to express our freedom in the pursuit of pleasure. We say to be truly free means to have a life where I enjoy life. I just want to enjoy life. I want pleasure. And so we pursue those things that make us most happy. We pursue the relationships, we pursue the possessions, we pursue the experiences that give us pleasure, and we avoid the things that give us pain. And so freedom is about maximizing pleasure. And pain is seen as slavery. Suffering is the opposite, is the great threat to freedom. And so many of us live our lives wanting to enjoy as much as we can. But of course, that's not the only way that we might choose to pursue freedom. It might be that you say, no, I want to express my freedom in achievement. I want to achieve great things. To be truly free means to be successful. It means to make a name. It means to be looked on as someone who has made it. I want to be someone who climbs the ladder. I want to be someone respected with status. And so many of us, we work hard. And at this point, the slavery is not now suffering, because some of us might even choose to experience pain, the pain of a day in the library, in order that you might achieve your freedom by passing your exams. And so freedom becomes about achievement. Now slavery is about failure. So when I fail, that's the great freedom robber. And many of us are pursuing achievement. So it could be pleasure, it could be achievement, or it could be that actually you say, no, I want to use my freedom to be kind. I want to use my freedom to do good. I want to make the world a better place. I want to help people. I want to be someone who's kind and does good stuff. That's my freedom. And so the opposite of that freedom is then evil. When I find myself confronted with things that are evil, or people who are selfish, or when perhaps I even find that within me, I want to do kind things, but then I find myself being selfish. I find myself being greedy. I find myself being unkind. So you've got this freedom that I want to express. And I don't know what it is for you. I don't know which one of those three. And maybe it's a combination of a bit of all of those. I want to enjoy life, I want to achieve stuff, and I want to be kind. But freedom is found somewhere in that sort of life. The lives that we emulate, the lives that we aspire to, are lives that look like fun, that look like a success, and look like they're good. And let's face it, all of those three things are good. There's nothing wrong with pleasure. There's nothing wrong with achievement. There's nothing wrong with being kind. But that's the kind of first version of freedom. You get to decide. You get to choose. It's your life. Make your choice. Pursue what you think will bring you freedom. Now, the critique of that and the problem, and at that point, I'd imagine we're all saying, yeah, that's how our world works. That's how our society works. That's what I've been taught since I was a kid. I mean, I remember going to a school assembly for one of my kids when they were very little, and they sang this song. the little class, you probably remember doing this sort of thing. They all stood there smiling, and the parents were all there watching, and the kids sang this song, and it was like it had a very kind of Disney type tune, and the chorus. I won't sing it for you because that would be painful. Although not as painful as them singing it, to be perfectly honest. The chorus said, "I can do anything at all. I can climb the highest mountain. I can hear the ocean calling vast and free. I can be anything I want with this dream inside to guide me, just as long as I believe in me." And it was, it was inspiring. It was beautiful, and they sang their hearts out. And at the end of it, I looked around, and all the parents were all crying. The teachers were crying. The head teacher was crying. The kids looked completely confused why everyone was crying. But that it captured a sense: you can do anything, kids. You can be anything. You can achieve anything. But here's my problem: it's not true. It's not true. Because actually, the reality is that as I looked at those kids and I listened to them sing this song, I thought, you are being set up for a lifetime of disappointment. You're not being prepared for the real world. You're being sold a lie. Because the kid who wants to be a Premier League footballer, I could tell, you can tell there's no chance. He's not going to make it. And you know that bit when athletes at the end of their race, when they've just won their gold medal, and they say stuff like, "This just goes to show that anyone can do anything and anyone can achieve their dreams." That drives me mad. I'm like, no, it doesn't prove that at all. You don't prove that. In fact, I can see behind you the 7 people that you beat, whose dream was to win the gold medal, who are now lying on the track, devastated because they failed. So no, you winning a gold medal doesn't prove that anyone can do anything. It proves that you're an exceptional athlete and you are unusually gifted. You see, most people are going to be average. That's just statistically true. And yet, if we build this message of freedom that says, no, you can do anything and you can have as much pleasure as you want, or achieve as much as you want, or do as much good as you want, actually, we're not preparing ourselves to live in this real world. You see, if pleasure is your measure of freedom, when suffering comes, you're going to struggle, because suffering is robbing you of freedom. And I guess we might just have to say, well, you just got to get over it. Unlucky. And some people get lucky and have a happy life, and some people don't get lucky and they just have a miserable life. But then you see, we've got no way of coping with suffering. Or if achievement is your great goal, then failure is terrifying to you. And you think that you're free by achieving stuff, but when you achieve something, you know there's something more you've got to achieve. And you get caught in this slavery of a fear of failure. And I've seen this over and over again in people's lives. People who've made achievement the definition of freedom, and therefore are enslaved by a fear of someone who might be better than them. You know, here comes someone who's got a better grade than me. I used to play the clarinet. And there was a girl in the band that I used to play in called Carola. And she was better than me. And she always used to get asked to play first clarinet, and I was always second clarinet. And it drove me mad. Because if achievement, if being the best is your goal, and if that's what you think freedom's about, then you're terrified of failure. And even being good, right? Even saying, I just want to do good in the world. I want to make a mark in the world. The reality is that we find that there is still selfishness and there is still evil. And even within us, I find that there's stuff that I do and I think, why do I do that? Why did I get angry with my kids? Why was I so selfish? Why did I behave that way? And so I want to argue and try and persuade you that this freedom that we're being sold, this freedom to do whatever you want to do, to enjoy life, pleasure, even being good, will give you freedom momentarily, When you get your exam result, you will feel free. Or when you do something good, you will feel free. Or when you have a great meal out, you'll feel free. But it won't last, and it won't satisfy you. And actually, ultimately, you will die. And at the moment when we die, all of our pleasure, all of our achievements, and all of our kindness, what does it count for? What was the point? So, that's freedom version 1. And at this point, you might say to me, yeah, but that's just the way the world is, so get over it. And I'd agree. I'd say, yeah, fine. If that is just the way the world is, then we might as well just try and either enjoy life, be a success, be kind. Great, if that's all there is. But here's my question. What if there's more? What if this freedom that we've given ourselves to live for, that there's more than that? You see, the second type of freedom I want to try and talk about is not a freedom that I discover for myself. Rather, it's a freedom that I was made for. So, not a freedom that I have to find and I have to create, but a freedom that I discover as I understand the bigger story to which I belong. I don't know if this illustration will help. But in the film Moana, which is, I'm sure you've all seen because it's a classic. If you haven't, don't worry, it's going to work anyway. In the film Moana, it's the story of a little girl who lives on an island, and all the people of her village stay on the island. They must stay on the island. But Moana just has this longing within her. She looks at the horizon and see the line where the sky meets the sea. It calls me. And she finds her heart being called to the ocean. But her dad keeps saying to her, no, we stay on the island, we stay on the island. But she says, yeah, but I feel called to the ocean. And she keeps saying, oh, what's wrong with me? And then she discovers the truth, that actually in the past, many generations earlier, her people had been ocean-going people. That they went out in boats, that they went out to explore the ocean. But then a terrible accident happened, and now they stay on the island, and they're kept on the island, and they're told, no, this is all there is, this is it. Don't think about anything bigger, just get on with life here. But Moana feels called by the ocean. And the message of that film is not be whatever you want to be, it's be who you're supposed to be. It's be who you are designed to be. Be the story in which you fit. And I want to suggest that that is a terrific way to think about freedom. So let me articulate this second view. At this point, I'm not asking you to believe what I'm saying. I'm going to talk about God. I'm not asking you to believe in God at this point. I'm just asking you to understand a different version of freedom. Not a freedom that I create, but a freedom that I discover as I understand the story to which I belong. And the story is this. There is a God who made this world, a God who made you. And he made you with a very specific purpose. And the purpose was that you would know him, that you would love him, that you would enjoy him, that you would find all of your life in him. But human beings didn't want that purpose. They said, no, that's slavery. We don't want that. So instead they said, let's throw that off and we're going to go and create a purpose for ourselves. We're going to go and find freedom for ourselves. And that is what has led to the frustration and the slavery of living in this world, where we can enjoy some things, but they never fully satisfy, and then ultimately we die. And just as I finish, I want to finish with a story that Jesus told, because philosophers have written about this stuff, and great thinkers have explored these themes of freedom. But I want to take you straight to Jesus. I would argue the greatest thinker, the greatest teacher there's ever been. His teaching is extraordinary. And let me tell you a story he told. It was about a father who had two sons. And the younger son lived with his father. And this is what he said. He said, give me my share of the estate. basically the younger son says, I don't want to live here, Dad. I don't want to live on this stupid farm, having to do all this stupid work. This is slavery. I want to be free. So the younger son takes all of the money that is his dad's, that would have come to him when his dad died, but he couldn't be bothered to wait for his dad to die. He takes all of this money, and it says the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. He went and lived freedom. He went full on freedom, pleasure. Let's just have a party. Let's just enjoy life. Now, if you'd met him at that point when he's having the great party and you'd said, have you made a good choice? Did you feel free? He'd said, yeah, I feel free. This is terrific. This is freedom. Back with my father, that was slavery, but this is freedom. But the problem is that the money runs out. And eventually he ends up feeding pigs, sitting in a pigsty, and he's starving. And now you say to him, do you still feel free? No, this isn't freedom anymore. Yes, it was freedom for a temporary moment. Yeah, there was a moment of freedom and pleasure, but not anymore. And then the younger son makes this radical decision, and this is what's so cool about this story, and this is what I want to leave you with, and I want us to think about and discuss. Do you know where the son's thoughts begin to turn? Remember Moana thinking about the ocean? The son begins to think about his father's house. He says, do you remember? I remember my father's house. I wonder if he'd have me back. And the son makes this radical decision to turn around and to go back to his father. And so he's trudging home thinking, I don't even know if my dad will have me back after what I've done. I've treated him so badly. And then we're told this. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. So you got this filthy, stinking, pigsty son walking back along the road. And then you've got this father who comes running down the road to meet him. And the younger son sees him running and must think, oh man, he's so angry, he's just going to punch me when he arrives. But instead, when they meet, there is this extraordinary moment where the father throws his arms around the younger son and says, welcome home. He forgives him, he kisses him, he welcomes him home. And it's there, in that moment, in that embrace, in that welcome, that I would argue true freedom is found. When there's no need to strive for more pleasure, there's no need to prove yourself with great achievements, there's not even a need to feel the pressure to make a mark and to be good. There is just the freedom to be welcomed. And Jesus told that story because that's what he's all about. The reason that Jesus came was so that people who have run away from God might come home. And actually, I haven't got time to explain all this, but it was going to cost him his life. Jesus had to die in order to welcome us home. That's how much he loves us. And so Jesus calls to people and he says, come home, come home. True freedom. It's not found in the temporary pleasure or the temporary achievement or the temporary goodness that we do now. It's found in this great story of a God who made you, of a God who loves you, of a God who sent his son to die for you, and of a God who's waiting to welcome you home. That's where freedom's found. And once you're in that place of freedom, then you can begin to enjoy life and you can begin to seek to achieve things and you can seek to do good, but that's not your freedom. Your freedom is found in your identity as a child in the home. That's freedom. I don't have to prove myself anymore because I know who I am. I'm welcomed by the God who made me and I'm loved. Guys, there's so much more that could be said. I hope that makes some sense. I'm sure you've got tons of stuff. Now, like I say, at this point, I'm not asking you to believe that there's a God. I'm not asking you, I'm saying this is what a Christian would talk about by freedom. And I guess I just want to say to you this lunchtime, if that were true, that would be cool, wouldn't it? I mean, that would be great. Sure, if there's no God, then we're back to the doing the best we can. But what if there was? And what if the ache that we feel in our hearts is because that's what we were made for? So have a think about it. Get your questions on Slido. We'll have a crack at doing some questions. But thanks for listening.
Great, thanks, Chauncey. Yeah, really quite a lot to think about. But thankfully, I'm not the one asking the questions. We've got questions coming in. If you would like to ask a question, you can still do that. It's not too late. We're going to be, we've got about 20 minutes or so to ask more questions. So if you want to ask a question, if you Google Slido on or whatever preferred search engine you use, and go to slido.com, and then, oh yes, it's on screen now. And then where it says enter code, you just need to enter the code that we're using, which is 094905. That's 094905. That will be on screen, that number, and it's in the description as well. Just go there, and then you can type a question in the top, or on the right hand side, you can see there's a like button. So if a question's been asked that you want to be answered that hasn't been answered yet, do click that button to let us know. We will try and get through all the questions. Hopefully we'll have time. Apologies in advance if we don't get through all the questions. We'll let you know how you can ask follow-up questions, as it were, at the end of the session. We should be done around 2 o'clock. But yeah, so I guess I'll just go ahead and I'll ask a question. You ready, Chauncey? So Christianity has rules and laws, doesn't it? Doesn't that stop or impair freedom?
Great. Bad rules stop and impair freedom. Good rules are essential for freedom. Anyone who has ever watched any sport of any kind knows that true freedom is found in having good rules. And this is part of our problem, that we sort of have this idea of freedom that is about throwing off rules and throwing off anything. Actually, that's just anarchy, and it doesn't lead to freedom. It would be terrifying to live in a society where there were no law. I mean, genuinely, you don't want that. That is a nightmare. In order to, a lot of our conversations around freedom are because we've sort of experienced living in a society that is governed by laws, and therefore we think, oh, they're the problem. Get rid of those. No. Go to a part of the world where there is no law, and you will quickly see that is not freedom. So the question is not that laws restrict our freedom. Bad laws restrict our freedom, right? So if God has given us bad laws, then yes, I agree that would restrict our freedom. If God has given us good laws, then that would be the key to our freedom. So I guess it's no different to me buying something, buying a toaster from an electrical shop. This is not a great illustration because we all know how toasters work. But, the manual tells me how to use it properly. If I say, oh, this manual, it just restricts my freedom. This is rubbish. I don't want this. I chuck it away. Rules just spoil my freedom. And instead I decide I'm going to use it in a different way. And then I say, why doesn't it make toast, stupid toaster? You get the example. I mean, it's obvious. But now, of course, if there's a God who made us, then he knows how we best should live, because he made us, he designed us. And therefore, bad laws restrict freedom, but good laws are essential to freedom.
Yeah, I think that's so important to remember. There's a difference between the types of laws. So we've got another question here. If God is all-knowing and controls everything, are we really free?
Great. This is a massive question. which I can only give a tiny answer to at the moment. So when the Bible talks about God, if there is a God, right, and if the Bible is right, then God is, well, he's God, right? And the image that often is used is that he sits on a throne. And the idea of a throne is the idea of rule, the idea of being a king. Now, like I said before, in our kind of society, the idea of there being a king, someone over us, it's like, I don't want that. Freedom is getting rid of that. No, true freedom is about having an awesome king. Right? Actually, what you really want is you want the best king that you could ever have. That's where true freedom would really. So a king who's just, a king who's strong. Right? So the marks of a bad king would be a king who's unjust, right? No one wants an unjust king. No one wants a weak king, right? No one wants a king who can't do anything. So when the enemy come, they go, oh no. You want a strong king who's got power and is in control. But you also want a king who's good. You want a king who's kind. All of these sorts of things. And these are the words that the Bible continually uses to describe God. So in the question, which is, God is, are we really free if God is in control and sort of controlling all things? That sort of the idea behind the question is that God is some kind of weird dictator we're little puppets and he just moves us around. Actually, the Bible never says that. That would be a version of a religion that pushes you towards fate, and that we have no control. So the Bible says, and this is where you're just going to stretch your brains. You won't like this. You're going to have to deal with it. And I'll say it because this is what it says in the Bible. And then you'll have to stretch your minds and think about it. The Bible says two things, and they're both true. One, yes, God is in control. That's good news, right? So yes, he is in control. But the second thing it says is that human beings have real choices. We have real responsibility, and the choices that we make matter. And if one of those things weren't true, if God wasn't really in control, that would be terrifying because it means that human beings are. And I don't really trust human beings to be in control. We don't have a great track record of that. Or if God is in control, but we have no choice, then we're just puppets. And that would be awful. But if both those things are true, then you have the security of a God who's king, and you have the responsibility that we need to make wise, good choices. That's where freedom is found. That's my short answer to a very long question.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. I'm sure many people have written about that question at length. Yeah, no, thank you. We've got a follow-up question to your, I guess, along the lines of your previous answer. So if Christianity still has good laws, does that mean that the people who fulfill those laws are better Christians?
Yeah, great. So Christianity has great laws. Yes, I think that's right. But when you understand in Hebrew, don't be impressed. I don't know much Hebrew, but in Hebrew, the word for law is Torah, and it really means instruction. So it's not like laws like we think of it. It's not like here's some rules that you must keep. Here's a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit. They are instructions from a father to his children. That's the picture. So this is a father saying to his children, children, this is how I want you to live. This is how I've designed you. This is how you can enjoy life to the full. And essentially, you can sum up all of God's laws in two main laws. And it wasn't me who said this, by the way. This is Jesus. So that's the authority here. Jesus was asked, come on, what's the law? And he said that the two laws are this. Love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's it. You boil everything down, it comes to that. Now, the question then was, well, if you keep those laws, are you better than everyone else? Okay, here's the second important thing about Christianity, is that no one keeps those rules, right? No one, by nature, loves God with all their heart, soul, strength, and mind, and loves their neighbor as their self. No one does it. All of us have turned away from God, like the son in the story that I told. All of us have said, no, I'm going to find freedom over here. I'll go my way. The great Frank Sinatra song, I did it my way. That's all of us do that. We live as if God doesn't matter, and we treat one another badly. Actually, the Bible says that there's no one who keeps the rules, which is why what we need is not more rules. What we need is a rescuer. What we need is someone who will welcome us and forgive us. That's the whole point of Jesus. Jesus didn't come and say, I've got some more rules for you to keep. Jesus said, no, you failed to keep the rules, but I'll die for you. I'll die. I'll take the punishment that your failure deserves so that you can come home. That's why. So if you think, if you get into your mind that being a Christian means keeping a bunch of rules so that God will be happy with you, you've missed the point. Being a Christian means saying, I can't keep the rules. I need God to rescue me. And then he says, yeah, of course I'll rescue you. Come here, welcome home. That's why it's freedom. And only then does he say, okay, now let's live this life. Now go achieve great things, enjoy life, be kind. But only after he's rescued us.
Yeah, that's so encouraging for each and every one of us. We can't be perfect. But yeah, that is so amazing. We've got another question now. How can I involve God in other areas of the first kind of achievement, the self freedom, like achievement and success? How can we involve God in that kind of side of life?
Yeah. That's brilliant. So as I look at my three boys, right? I've got three kids. I think one of my jobs as a dad is to help them to prepare for life. And one of the best ways I can do that is to say, boys, I love you. I love you no matter what you do, no matter what happens in your life. I love you. No matter whether you get straight 9s or straight 1s, I love you. We're in kind of GCSE phase. Because I want them to work at their schoolwork, not to try and prove themselves to me. I want them to work from the freedom of knowing they're already loved. You see, if you say, no, I need to achieve so that I can be loved, then it becomes this massive burden and you fear failure. But if you say, no, I am loved, now I want to use the things that I've been given, then it changes it completely. So to put that in kind of God language, I want my boys to grow up and have big ambitions, but ambitions that say, how could I use my life, this gift that God has given me, to be a blessing to others, to help others. But it starts with the security of knowing that I'm loved. And from there, that's the freedom bit. The freedom bit is I'm loved, I'm accepted, I'm welcomed, I'm embraced by God. He forgives all my sin, all of my failure, everything is forgiven. I'm free, I've got nothing to prove. And then I say, okay, God, Father, what do you want me to do? How shall I live? And it means that when I'm enjoying something, if I go on a holiday and I go to a beautiful place, I don't just enjoy it and go, oh, this is nice. I find myself saying, Father, you made this. And it deepens my joy. It deepens my experience of pleasure. because I know the God who made it, and I can see it as a gift that he's given me. I told you it was my middle son's birthday today. We gave him gifts this morning. And therefore the Apple AirPods, which are like the most prized possession now that he has, it's not just that he enjoys them. The enjoyment is deepened by the fact that they come as a gift from us, his mum and dad. So everything that I enjoy in life is not just a random accident that I happen to be enjoying. I say, Father, you gave this to me. Every achievement that I achieve, I say, Father, you helped me, you enabled me. You gave me the gifts to be able to achieve these things. Every kind thing that I do, I say, Father, you helped me do this. And so it deepens our and it sets us free.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. I think particularly, I'm going through, well, I'm sure most students listening to this, it's exam time right now. So feels very current and relevant. Although I did have to translate 1s to 9s to A's to F's in my head.
You're not
no.
current as me, obviously.
I'm
down with the kids as I am. So when I was at uni, I failed 3 out of 5 of my first year exams. I failed, and you only had to get 40% to pass. So I mean, terrible. My first year, I just found it so hard.
Yeah.
And actually, this reality that I am loved, that my failures in these exams makes no difference to my security, my identity, who I am. If I hadn't had that, I don't know how I would have coped with that failure. Yeah. It was incredibly freeing in that moment.
Yeah, that's really helpful. There you go, Kate. Even if you don't get 40%, but you can just get 40%. It'll be fine. Great. We'll crack on. We've got another question. It's quite a long one, so I'll try and get through it. Does God think it's wrong to seek the other kind of freedom before turning back to Him? And once we've sort of decided we don't want that kind of freedom, does He think it's wrong to pursue that? I guess it's sort of similar to what you were just saying, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you go back to the story that Jesus told about the father with the son, when the son said to his dad, "Give me all your money, I can't wait for you to die. I want to crack on with life." And as he walked away from his father, do you think the father just shrugged his shoulders and went, "Oh, well, never mind"? No, the father was grieved and probably rightly angry. It was wrong. It was an awful thing, an awful way to treat his father. And so I think when we turn our back on God and when we take all his good gifts and we enjoy the pleasure and we achieve things and we do good stuff, but we make it all about us and we say, well, aren't I great? And look what I've achieved. And I've got this wonderful experience that I've had. And we take all his gifts, but we ignore him. Yeah, I think it's wrong. And I think it's sin is what it is. That's what we mean when we talk about sin. Getting rid of God and just taking all his gifts for ourselves. But we all do that. All of us by nature do that. That's the way our hearts go. And although it's wrong, the father is also, in the story, longing for his son to come home and waiting for his son to come home. And as soon as the son comes home, the father welcomes him. He doesn't say, right, well, you need to pay me back. He doesn't say, well, you need to keep these rules and then we'll see how we're doing. He just throws his arms around him and says, welcome home. I love you. You've come back. That's how God treats us. Doesn't matter how far you've gone. It doesn't matter how bad you are. And you may still, look, my guess is a bunch of people on this call, you may still be in the situation of that younger son when he's in his partying phase, saying, my life's great. I'm free. I don't need God. I don't need anything else. And I guess my hope for you is that when suffering comes into your life, or when failure comes into your life, or when evil comes into your life and you find yourself in a pigsty, you find yourself at rock bottom, my hope is that you remember this talk and you think, perhaps he was right. Perhaps I do need to go home. And I get it. You know, some of you won't see that yet because you're not in the pigsty. But my appeal to you would be, don't wait till you get to the pigsty, because God is so good, and it changes your life. This freedom, it's so, honestly, it's just so good.
Yeah, it's a good idea to reflect on where you are at life and how much, you might need the freedom that you're talking about. We've got an interesting one here. We might feel free here in the UK, but how can Christians who are persecuted around the world feel free?
Well, I think actually that backs up the question even more. I mean, I think one of the things that slightly does my head in is when people say, look, so in a few years ago, the British Humanist Association took out some bus adverts. I don't know if you remember this. You're probably all too young. They took out some bus adverts, and on buses all over London, it said, there probably isn't a God. Just stop worrying about it and enjoy life. They put these messages all over London. And I just thought to myself, well, you go on the British Humanist Association website, and all of the people who they're interviewing, they're all wealthy, middle class, successful people. Because if you're successful and life is going well, it's fine to be told, oh, just get on and enjoy life. But it's a worldview that only works for a tiny proportion of our world. Because you go to someone who's starving, someone who's living below the poverty line, and say, oh, stop worrying about God, you've only got one life, just enjoy it. Then how can I enjoy it? And you basically said, well, there's no chance for you to have freedom. Whereas I think if you went to ask Christians who are being killed for their faith right now, or in prison for their faith, many of them would tell you, I'm free. And they would say to you, no, freedom is about knowing I'm loved by God. And of course, one of the things we haven't touched on is the great promise that this freedom that we have when we come back to God is a freedom that lasts even beyond the grave, a freedom forever. All of our pleasure doesn't last. The bowl of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, which I love so much, is gone in about 30 seconds. And then you're like, oh. And all of the things, all of our pleasures, all of our achievements, even all of our good works, they don't last. So the freedom is only ever temporary. Whereas the freedom we're talking about here is a freedom that lasts forever. So someone who's sitting in prison in North Korea because they're a Christian, they're more free. They're more free than the richest humanist Stephen Fry bloke in the UK. Because they have a freedom that will last forever. But it takes a complete change of worldview to really see that.
Yeah. We've got time for one last question, and it actually flows really, really well. We got this before you just said that, and it flows really well from what you just said. If we're free now, then why do we need heaven or the next life? And how is that different if we have freedom now? How is that different from the freedom we have now?
Yeah. And it's the difference between something temporary and something eternal. You see, there's this really interesting image in the Bible. And in fact, if you've ever been to a carol service, you will recognize these words. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. And that is from Isaiah 9. And that language of the shadow of death, actually, all of our lives are lived under this shadow of death. All of the freedoms we enjoy, you sort of just have to keep ignoring death, right? You just sort of have to go, no, okay, I just won't think about that. Because death kind of stuffs up all of our freedom. It really does. It messes up the world. And therefore, the freedom that we have is only ever temporary. It really is. It really only lasts a very short time. In 100 years, no one will know my name. No one will know whether I was good or mean. No one will know what I got in my GCSEs, which to me was like the most important thing in the whole world. No one cares. I mean, no one cares now what I got in my GCSEs. It doesn't. Who cares? And these things which we think of freedom, the problem is they don't last. And as you get older, you will realize this more and more. You guys are still young enough to have an illusion that life goes on forever. But as you get older, you will discover life goes faster and faster, and you realize, I'm going to die. And that is quite a sobering and scary thought. And it sort of renders all of our freedom now. Yeah, and this is what I mean. You can enjoy freedom now, you can enjoy pleasure, you can enjoy success, you can enjoy doing good things, but they'll never truly satisfy you because they can't answer the question of death. So I'm saying, what if there's a God who can answer the question of death? What if there's a God who can remove the dark shadow of death? And in Isaiah 9, it says, to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And the good news of Jesus is that this baby was born to set us free from the shadow of death, so that we might live at home with God forever. That's the big story. And I think all of us experience from time to time a little ache in our hearts that says, surely there's more. Like Moana looking at the ocean, we find ourselves going, is there more? What if there is a God who made me? And I think that's because that's what we're made for. And we find it very difficult to be satisfied with this world.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's all we've got time for now. Thank you for all the questions you've sent in, guys. Really thought-provoking. And thank you, Jonty, for the talk and the answers. Really, really helpful.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and if you've got any more questions for those of you watching, feel free to just log on to Facebook. We've got our Facebook page, our Newcastle CU Facebook page, or we're on Instagram, so you can just message your questions there and we'll pass them on to Jonty, or just answer them the best we can. We've also got our CU Equip event, which is on Friday, so you can go onto the CU Facebook page again and you can sign up, and we're going to be in person in a church building, so it's all socially distanced and everything, but come along and we'll sing some songs, hum, and we'll have a talk, and we'll be able to gather together and be in fellowship. But it's been lovely to have you all here, and I hope to see you again soon. And thanks for watching.
See you maybe on Friday. Come along. It'd be really great to enjoy the freedom of post-lockdown together. And if you great to if you see one of us there, then come up to us and be like, I saw you on the thing, and say hi. Please come.
Thank you for watching.